Making a brand is easier than you think and can help you big time. Some business owners usually think that branding is something difficult or expensive that doesn't work that much. And I want to show you otherwise. Making a brand is actually an easy process that can help any kind of business and in every size if you follow these 5 steps. So what is a brand? Let me show you something that I have been using with the word brand that helps a lot, not only to have the whole idea what the brand is about, but also to remember the elements that you need to consider when creating one. We start with the B of brand. This stands for me, behavior. This has to do with what you do in your business. Either if you're a service provider, if you create a product, it's the whole process or idea of daily activities that you do in your business. We have R, which is, for me, reputation. This has to do with what people say about you. Of course, there are things that you cannot control, but this is very important that you have this sort of conceptual map or reputation around you that is as consistent as you can around your business. Now we have the A, which for me stands for all visuals. What do I mean by that? Any kind of visual that makes your business recognizable everywhere. That's very important to consider. Here we have, of course, the logo, but we also have the website, but also we have colors, we have the type fonts, we have how do we look, how are we perceived visually, etc. This is very important to consider because then when we think about the logo, we know that could be important, but it's not necessary in the beginning if you have a super sophisticated, professionally made logo, if you don't have a clear idea how you want to be perceived. So the logo is something that I really recommend business owners to have. They have a clear idea of what they are and how they really want to be perceived. You don't want to spend too much money in the beginning if you don't have a clear idea of what your business is about, because then that lack of clarity is going to be reflected in the logo. And that's what we don't want. In these all visuals, what is important is to have a coherent idea of what your business is about. What is more important is to have clarity of your brand. Therefore, these visuals come after you plan, after you decide what is really what you want to do in your business and what the vision and the value proposition, which are the next steps, are going to be. That's why we continue with N. This is a very, very important part that sometimes people forget, which for me is have a neat vision. This is something strategic for you to think about in the beginning. It has to do what your vision of your brand is for some years ahead. You have to consider that you do things for someone, also for yourself. You need to have a constant motivation every day to do something. And if you don't have a clear vision, if you don't know where to go, if this is somehow blurry, it's going to affect your business as a whole. So for a neat vision, we want to go somewhere ambitious and somewhere fun. So think about this and decide where you want to go in the future. And it needs to be ambitious and fun. Believe me, if you don't enjoy your work, you can't continue for too long. And that's why we see business owners just crashing in the first year or 2 years. It needs to be fun. It needs to spark something that motivates you to keep going. And finally, we have D. For me, D stands for a defined value proposition. This is something very important because it's about the uniqueness of your business. What is unique about you? Why people want to go and buy something from you and not from your competitors? We are in a globalized world where people can go and buy services everywhere, products everywhere. So your unique value proposition has to be something very special, as something that comes from the heart. That's why I always say we aim to build a brand with character. It's a character that comes from you, from your heart, from your mind, that connects and wants to connect with someone else. That's the point. For this aspect, which is about the uniqueness of your brand, you need to do research. Why? Because you need to stand out. Validation is very important. Sometimes we get very obsessed with ideas and we believe that that's the best idea of business, but we don't try out. We don't ask people if that's actually relevant for them, if that's indeed actually a good idea and a valuable product. And it is very important to ground your ideas, to simply ask people first if it's something unique, if it's something relevant, and if they are willing to pay for such a thing. So these are the 5 elements that you should always consider with regards to building your brand: behavior, reputation, all visuals, a neat vision, and a defined value proposition. And what is the whole point of all of this? If you're actually consistent and deliver these kind of aspects over time, you create a brand promise to someone, which in return gives you trust. That's what we all want. What people can expect from you, trust. But this is something that you can deliver over time. That is the result of your brand promise. If you perform in a consistent and good way and people keep talking good about your service and product over time, people recognize you where you go over time, most likely you will develop brand trust and people will like to work with you. That's how the principles work. Now, the second part of this video, we will learn how to specifically do every single step. We start definitely with the behavior. What is the first single step? You have to define a specific offer. This is very important, and usually people are very confused about this. A specific offer is simply to define a product or specific tangible offer, product or service that people can buy. We tend to create ideas that are a bit general, and sometimes people don't understand what we are actually offering. What is important about your offer is that it should be measured either by time, if you are providing services. This means I will provide with 1 hour coaching or 6 months course, whatever. It is important that this tangible result or offer, service is measured either by time or space. How is this if you make a product? This means if you actually develop something that has volume or has weight, either if it's digital, but you actually define something that can be specifically bought. That's the first step. We will actually continue with defined value proposition. This has to do with what you give to this offer to make it unique, attractive, sexy even, and authentic. This is very important. It has to be fun. We are connecting hearts. So if you're very stiff and you really don't provide this authenticity that comes from your heart, well, I'm sure people wouldn't get it. That is very important, in my opinion. Then we go with the N, which is about the need vision. This is for me something really important, which is setting the goals in the future for your business. This has to do with the accountability of how you are going to perform over years, but also that gives you this push to really perform every day and not to feel frustrated if you don't do something. That's something I really advise you to do. Just have a specific planner, a structure, something that really guides you for the future and say where you want to go. Now, you have to think of possibilities that are for the future, but they're realistic in the present. So that's why I always recommend my coachings to have a vision for the future for 3 years, another one for 2 years, another one for 1 year, and if possible for 6 months and the next month. Just break it down and start slowly, one step at a time, but always have a vision that pushes you to move forward. This one, what is important then is to set yourself clear goals for you and your business. Now, the next 2 points are about the reputation and all visuals. Reputation is, of course, about communication. So what is important here is to have a clear message. The clear message is to say exactly what you do with a clear idea of the problem that you're trying to solve as a brand. If you have clarity in your communication everywhere, and if you are relevant and attractive to the people you talk, first of all, it's easier that people understand you and connect with you. And second, people can help to spread the message and to speak well about you. That's why having a clear message, a very short sentence that tells people what you do in simple words is so important. And finally, we go with all visuals. Then we give the shape to the brand. Then we actually see how the brand should look like. For this aspect, I really like to refer to the brand personality. This is a very interesting concept. It tells us about how your brand look like if you will think of it as a person. Imagine that a person that reflects entirely what your brand stands for comes right after you, or just enters the door, and you can describe this person. That exercise helps a lot to define all the visuals that you like and that you feel are right for your brand. But as you can see, this is something that you do in the end. Just as a 5-step, if you think about it, we start with a specific offer, then we think about the defined value proposition, we think about the goals that we want to have, then we develop the clear message that combines this all, and then in the end, we actually define all visuals that you consider relevant for your product or service. Now, these visuals depend on the type of product or services that you're going to provide or the type of business that you have. For instance, if you're going to make bread, perhaps having a nice sign on your shop will be very important because that's what people need to see straight away. Perhaps having a nice logo on top of the bags, on the bags where you deliver the bread is important because people like to see that this bread comes from that bakery, and that will help you to actually show your brand wherever that person goes with the bag. So perhaps you will need as a priority a good logo to put both in your sign or on your bags. However, if you're a service consultant, perhaps you don't need a logo straight away. Perhaps you need a website that is first well developed, is clear, is friendly. It shows you how you develop your service. It shows your portfolio, all the products that you develop, all the services that you have provided. So of course, for you as a service consultant, it's more important to develop a website than for a person who makes bread. So which kind of visuals do you develop depends exactly on the type of business that you do. What is important, and I really recommend this, is be mindful with this. By being mindful, I simply mean to think about all these processes, all these aspects before doing the visuals, and see what your brand really needs and create it. Just don't start by jumping in a message on Instagram when you start your business. Don't start immediately doing a logo on an AI platform that won't communicate anything if you don't have a clear message, if you don't have a clear vision, if you don't have all the steps before, because people will notice that. People will notice that you don't have a clear understanding of what you really want to sell. So those are the 5 steps. Those are the 5 aspects. Thank you for watching. I will send you some links below for academic publications if you want to know more about this topic, because it's one of my favorites. I really love it. So if you want to have more discussions about it, if you have questions about this, feel free to contact me. I'd love to help. See you next time. Keep being inspired. Bye-bye.